Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Tessier of WrestleZone.com, joined by John Clark tonight to talk about WWE Monday Night Raw, right off the heels of SummerSlam at the end of a wild weekend, jam-packed, full of wrestling. John, CM Punk is back. Raw is actually good. The world is turning upside down. Who even knows what's going on anymore? How you doing?
Good. I am in loss. I have my souvenir cup here, and I have my pro.
You've been glitching out a little bit. You have your program from SummerSlam?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah, John was at SummerSlam. As always, our boots on the ground, and we all, of course, appreciate him taking his time here to talk about Raw with us. Of course, we will talk about SummerSlam as well, at least on the Raw side of things. There's definitely a lot to talk about on that, kind of on that end, and I guess might as well start there with Bobby Lashley, WWE Champion, starting the show tonight on Raw. He defeated Goldberg at SummerSlam. Of course, there was some concern that he might be in danger of losing to Goldberg at SummerSlam, but didn't necessarily beat him. I mean, Goldberg was kind of unable to continue there at SummerSlam, and Lashley attacked Gage, Goldberg's son, after the match there. Lost John for a second and have him back in here. And Goldberg, he was unable to continue, so then Gage got beat down, and Lashley and MVP were talking about that tonight, and basically they're calling Goldberg a coward, they're calling Gage a coward. And Damian Priest, the new United States champion, came out and they got to Lashley to set up the match. So I guess I'll pause there and ask, John, what do you think about Lashley somewhat defeating Goldberg, attacking Gage, and then I guess on the flip side, Priest winning the U.S. title and stopping up to Lashley here?
I mean, I thought it was pretty crazy. Did it make sense to you?
In terms of Priest stepping up to him?
Yeah, to me, it was kind of like, I guess I wasn't expecting that. I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, we kind of knew Goldberg was going to be gone, but at the same time, it was who would be next? And I just thought fresh off of a U.S. title win, it wasn't going to be him, but it was.
Yeah, to me, that makes a lot of sense, because, when you have champion versus champion matches, it's weird to have, the new champion kind of in that spot, and that you kind of expect to see them. I don't know, they book Lashley so strong, it's hard in the sense that you almost set up this situation where nobody could kind of convincingly be in that spot. And I will say, when Priest came out, I was surprised in that sense. It did seem weird that they put him in that spot, because in theory, it felt like a match he would lose, and then that was my first reaction, and then I was like, oh no, they'll probably do a wonky finish or the classic Teddy Long tag team match, and that's what they wound up doing. And I will say they really did, at least I thought, a nice job positioning Damian Priest as a legitimate threat to Lashley here. Granted, he didn't beat Lashley. Sheamus came in and attacked him to set up a tag team match when Drew McIntyre made the save. Lashley eventually abandoned Sheamus, and McIntyre got the pin. Some people, myself included, had a brief fear that it seemed like they're going for McIntyre versus Lashley again. I don't think that's necessarily where we're going, but what do you think of this tag team match? I thought this was a really fun tag team match, and then Damian Priest kind of standing tall in a way and emerging as a somewhat strong contender for the WWE title, wouldn't you say?
I mean, were you expecting him though?
Was I expecting Priest?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds like we're talking like you possibly expect the man to win the match.
I mean, I didn't expect, like I said, I didn't expect Priest to be in that spot to begin with, and then the fact that Drew come out and Drew got the pin. I guess that's not all that surprising in the sense that it's not I mean, I don't know. That seemed like it would have made a little more sense to have Priest get the pin there.
Well, Drew comes out and they're thinking, oh god, Drew can't have another match because stipulation. So Drew can't be next in line, and now it appears that Sheamus is him, and is Sheamus a face? What do we got here?
Yeah, it does seem like, well, we do know that Sheamus will face Lashley next week. That they did announce that it's a non-title match. So, it feels like that's a possibility. I'm not sure. There we could talk about it for the majority of the show, but there are a couple matches here where we've got Lashley versus Sheamus next week, and then we'll talk about Miz and Morrison, and we'll be facing off next week. A couple matches that feel like they could be pay-per-view matches. Those are going to be happening next week. We could see some shenanigans next week, and kind of stretch it out to the pay-per-view. I guess roughly a month until the next pay-per-view. So. I think Lashley Sheamus would be a good option. I think that'd be a very good match, and I'd like to see that. But I don't know. Like, we were talking about it. Otherwise, even before SummerSlam, it's like who would be next beyond Goldberg? Priest makes some sense, and as a champion, you don't want to kind of put him in a position to lose. Sheamus will make some sense. I think that'll be fun in the sense that it's not this like kind of typical, good guy, bad guy situation where I think they're both kind of in this gray area. Lashley got cheered after kind of beating Goldberg, beating him down after the match. The fans, especially live in attendance, seemed to like that, and they even cheered him when he beat up Gage. And I'm sure you could speak to the reaction there. But now Lashley isn't as much this kind of clear-cut heel, whereas Sheamus, kind of is, but then in a more traditional sense. Lashley abandoned Sheamus later. There's kind of this kind of gray area. So I could see Sheamus as maybe a transitional option here, but I'm not sure who might be an option otherwise. What do you think?
Well, I certainly think that Sheamus is a term possibility for Exposed. But at the same time, and I'm very happy to see Lesnar back. But at the same time, I was like, if it's going to come back, they could have set up with Lashley. Now, granted, they still can. If they do go with Lesnar, Reigns at, they could still do Lashley and Lesnar at Survivor Series. But as a transitional feud, I was kind of expecting. I didn't know what, but I was certainly expecting an established base.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and. Yeah, it's funny, with SummerSlam, we're on the Raw show, but of course it's hard not to talk about SummerSlam without the fact that Brock came back, that Becky Lynch came back, two of the very top stars of the company came back. They're both on SmackDown. Raw didn't get anything out of that, right? Raw, didn't get any kind of injection of energy. Even we talked about this last month when John Cena came back. Granted, he popped up on Raw, I think that first week, and then that was it. We haven't seen any of this kind of. Even kind of this I guess short-term boost, I'll say, Edge is on SmackDown, Cena's on SmackDown. Now Brock is back, likely to challenge Roman. Becky Lynch is back on SmackDown now. And so Raw, and granted, I will preface that by saying I thought Raw was very good tonight. So in a way, not to say they didn't need it, but I guess they've kind of they kept rolling and they're finding other ways to put on a good show. Again, for me, I was very pleasantly surprised with the overall quality for Raw tonight, and I thought it was fun. There were some weird things. We'll talk about it, but I thought this tag match was a lot of fun. Like I said, Lashley versus Sheamus could be a pretty good match. If that, who even knows if that will be at the pay-per-view, but even just for next week, I think that'll be good. And we will talk about Miz and Morrison. That was another big thing tonight. But I don't want to. I like to kind of balance out here. So I like the tag team match. Something I did not like whatsoever. Karrion Kross coming out looking absolutely ridiculous. Dan Greyhouse had suspenders like the Bushwhackers. There's the Bushwhackers comparisons, Demolition, a whole bunch of other wacky associations there. I don't want to get too far into the weeds there, but my gosh, John, they have a guy that lost the NXT title last night, and they didn't even mention that, and that's fine. That's a prerogative, right? If they want to separate the brands there and not mention NXT, I don't care for that mentality. I like to get the shared universe aspect, but that's up to them. But still, that was a little irritating that they even mentioned that he lost the title last night. Then he comes out, he's got this mask, he's got suspenders, this it was so weird. And granted, in the ring, he looked good. He squashed Ricochet. Granted, Ricochet deserves so much better than that. But I think myself and a lot of the wrestling world, the people that are watching, couldn't get past this wacky, ridiculous gear. How in the world have we gone from Karrion Kross, the badass we saw in NXT, to whatever the in the world this is. Even in the comments here, Nuskers thinks she didn't like Cross's new gear. And again, that Bushwhacker comparison, this is just beyond the pale. What do you think about this, John?
I don't think it's the end. It's the end of the world. I mean, I think. So people asking where it's at. We believe Scarlett cleared, which even though she's not actually wrestling, I guess you still have to be cleared to go to the ringside. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah. But nevertheless, the fact the gear was. I mean, the mask was pushing it. The gear itself would have been okay without, but at the same time, it's like. And the positive is, and obviously this is going to hurt Ricochet. I know people are going to be upset about this, but dominant action, didn't he?
Yeah, to me that's another thing as well. We talked about it. Bill and I were talking about it a little on the NXT show last night, where it's like if the reports are saying that Scarlett's not cleared, that's a shame, because I will argue Tom Blue in the face. I think Cross is so much better with her. So if that is the case, that it's a medical thing or something of just of a clearance kind of issue, I hope this will be cleared soon. I've seen other ideas that maybe they want to kind of present her as an individual act. Again, it's their prerogative. I think they're great together, and I think maybe even more so than what we saw in NXT. I don't think it needs to be all or nothing. I think you could have Scarlett as an individual act, and as the manager, the complimentary piece to Karrion Kross there. So I'm still not really sure. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen many reports about it, let alone anything official about it. So I really don't know. I don't want to spec on it too much. But if it is a clearance issue again, I hope that she gets cleared soon, and that whatever the plan might be for her, that they do right by her, because I think even as an individual, she's very, very talented. So of course, as soon as we know more, we'll let you guys.
The fact that we already kind of go through this little change in character, maybe that Scarlett isn't a part of the, I guess you would call it, the act moving forward. But I mean, something different planned. But to me, with this new thing, technically the thing we've seen Cross do, kind of like a plain Jane when he first came to Raw, and like officially on Raw, he's kind of like new gimmick, what you would call it. But the only thing that's really about it is the fact that he's dressed differently. I mean, the entrance is different, but his entrance at Takeover really was the one he did Raw the past couple weeks.
Right. I mean, it feels like it's been more of a hybrid of what we've seen the last couple weeks for him on NXT has been basically what we've been doing on Raw. Like, he hasn't had Scarlett, he hasn't really been doing as much of the same character. Granted, we've seen more character in NXT because he was the champion, he was the main event player. On Raw, he's still kind of the new guy, so it's a different context. So we haven't really seen as much mic work, we haven't gotten to see really what this character is. Beyond the matches, beyond a couple brief promos here and there. But yeah, I mean, like that, I think a lot of people, and myself included, have definitely kind of focused on the gear because it does look goofy as hell. But it's not like he debuted this new gimmick even. Like, he was playing this kind of gladiator kind of thing, and I think that was kind of the idea here. And I think that makes sense, that they were kind of trying to go in that direction and maybe shake it up so that if he is moving up to Raw in a more permanent way, that now this is the Karrion Kross on Raw, now the Karrion Kross on NXT. So again, I'm not trying to exclusively criticize it. I'm not trying to defend it either. I'm trying to I guess rationalize it in that sense. So I will say, in the ring, got a dominant win. He's clearly being presented as a legitimate, player on Raw, and that's all I can really ask for. Again, after the first week when he lost to Jeff Hardy, and he lost to Keith Lee at one point. Keith Lee hasn't been on the show in a couple weeks now, so it felt like perhaps a mishandled beginning to his run here. Like when Nuskers is saying, I think she's talking about Karrion Kross. You're saying, "Don't fix what's not broken." I mean, I thought he was great on NXT. I liked his character. Again, don't know what's going on with Scarlett, but if it's something where they have a choice and they're choosing not to use her, I think that's a shame, because I think they're that good together. If it's something that they've had to adapt because she's not available, then that's a different matter entirely. I hope this gear isn't.
Let's talk about Rick. The fact that Ricochet gets into this match. He basically gets offense, and I'm not even sure if we even saw his entrance. I think he came back from commercial. Wasn't he already in the?
Yeah, he got the classic jobber entrance, John. Like this is such a shame. And Jess Mata in the comments saying Ricochet needs to either be treated better, go back to NXT, or leave the company. He's being wasted on the main roster. I mean, that's been the case largely.
Not what NXT wants, though. He is not what NXT wants anymore. Forward, and I honestly think that they're moving back on NXT.
Yeah, I mean, of course, before the last week we saw, before yesterday we had Nick Khan, WWE president, with the interview saying that there'll be an extensive rebranding and kind of reorganization or kind of a shuffling of the NXT philosophy, and it kind of sounds like definitely Ricochet does not fit that mold where they really want kind of not indie guys. Like that was kind of the big takeaway. So it feels like NXT is kind of pivoting away from the model we've seen, and in that sense, it feels like that's not the best option for him. I feel like. If you say like 2 months ago, I think Ricochet would be great on NXT. I think that'd be great for him. But now it's like, okay, NXT is clearly going to make some changes, and we don't know what that's going to look like yet. But based on the comments that Nick Khan himself made, that definitely is concerning. So to me, definitely something concerning. And then Nesh Chris saying that it's concerning, and to me, that's something that reflects on Raw as well. We're seeing Karrion Kross now come up even before these supposedly sweeping changes. And that kind of just leaves you wondering about maybe the long-term prospects for NXT as a whole here. So I never want to like root for somebody to leave the company, especially somebody like Ricochet, who I really do enjoy. But no, he's definitely been misused for a while. Other than that brief feud he had with Sheamus, kind of the ongoing misuse and unfortunate booking, I guess, for trying to be polite about it. Probably for, over probably a year and a half now, dating ever since they lost to Brock Lesnar, really just kind of one thing after another. So I can hope that things will get better for him, but I also want to be realistic based on what we've been seeing. He literally just lost Karrion Kross. It felt like in a minute. That doesn't really feel like a good reflection on his status or his standing on Raw, at least. And I'm not sure what the best path forward for him would be in this sense. But that definitely is a shame as well. As much as people can focus on the gear here for Karrion Kross, on the flip side, definitely a reflection on an unfortunate kind of outing, I'll say, for Ricochet. So. As I said, one thing I didn't like of Karrion Kross, one thing I did like, The Miz and Morrison are no more. They split up finally. I thought they were going to go with a slow build here. There was at least a report that they were going to feud with a New Day to kind of draw this out. Apparently, Kofi Kingston reportedly has not been cleared, so that might be a factor in why they accelerated the timeline here, where Logan Paul, a very controversial figure, was on Moist TV, and the crowd was letting him have. The crowd did not like him at all. And The Miz came out and kind of played into that, and then he and Morrison were going back and forth about Miz fake his injury, and that Miz had a good line about how instead of chasing titles, he's been kind of spraying people with the dripstick. So he's been turned into a joke in a way. Whereas 4 months ago he was the WWE champion, or maybe 3 months ago, no, 5 months ago, whatever it was over this year. He was a WWE champion. Now he's got the dripstick. John's motioning 4 months at me. So yeah, but that's not all that long. So clearly he's lost his way in that sense. So definitely a solid motive for what we saw tonight, where he had a match with Xavier Woods without Kofi Kingston, and Morrison accidentally cost the match. Miz, he just, he snapped. He got frustrated. He attacked Morrison, beat him up, and, pretty clearly suggested that, they're done. And then later in the show, Morrison said, we are done. Like in the promo, he said, no more Miz and Morrison. I'm going to end this next week when I get my hands on them. So we are clearly getting the Miz versus, they announced Miz versus Morrison for next week. And I can hope that we'll get an actual feud, but we do know that match will happen next week. John, what do you think about this turn and where it might be going?
I was really able to get a pay-per-view match from these two. Hope we do. But what do you think about them? Just having a match with literally no build-up whatsoever. I mean, there kind of was, but there kind of wasn't.
I mean, I guess to compare, this feels a little better than what we got with Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre, where it was a pretty they did it cold and then they booked it for SummerSlam and they told the story kind of backwards. Whereas this, they've been hinting at it a little bit, and then we're going to see it next week. If I had to predict, I would probably expect something a little wonky where maybe it's a DQ or a count out or something, and then they might draw it out to do the pay-per-views. You and I have been talking about that for a couple of weeks now, where that feels likely. You know, you could do who knows, a ladder match. Some people on Twitter were predicting like a dripstick on a pole match. I mean, they could do some fun stuff here at Extreme Rules next month. So, and DGSA saying that they could do a Wilder gunfight next week. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but it feels like there's definitely a possibility there that they can draw this out. They've definitely got the history and the story. And I think it may have been Ryan Satin of Fox Sports tweeted that like a snake can never change its stripes. He had a side-by-side image of Miz turning on Morrison. I think that was 2009, and now here we are, 2021. So definitely just a reflection of all this history. They were a team, they split up, and then 10 years went by, and then they got back together, and here we are. So now we're going to get this feud again, but now so much has changed. For The Miz won the WWE title twice. Morrison's been a world champion elsewhere, so I'm looking forward to it. I mean, we talked about it for a couple of weeks, where I thought they had a lot of potential to do something similar with McIntyre and Mahal. I'm hopeful they'll do better by this one. And I think, if they play the cards right, they could definitely use this to kind of springboard Morrison. I think Morrison's been doing great work in the ring as a character. I mean, as goofy as it is, giant drip, he's making it work. And I think you could really have him kind of return to the title scene, and that's what we're getting some comments about. So no, and Raul Taker Sanchez saying that this kind of helped Morrison maybe become even bigger than The Miz. I mean, maybe I guess a little maybe delayed, because back in the day people thought that Morrison would be the breakout star of the team, and of course reality went differently. But Neshkur saying Morrison for champ, Dan Greyhouse saying Morrison would be a big star. So I mean, I do feel like there's definitely a lot of potential here for Morrison to, I mean, become even a transitional feud for Bobby Lashley or something like that. So I'm looking forward to it. I would agree that it may have been better to play it a little slow, but I'm not going to complain too much. As much as I may have wanted that, it was cool to have that surprise, like, oh, hey, kind of a little bit of a swerve here tonight of having this breakup happening now. So I'm not going to complain too much about that. And while this wasn't the only, if not friendship, the only alliance breakups tonight, because we officially got the split of Doudrop and Eva Marie. Doudrop keeping her name. We saw that Eva Marie lost to Alexa Bliss at SummerSlam. Doudrop kind of mocked. Well, she did mock Marie after the match and said the loser of the match is Eva Marie. In the promo tonight, she said that she's going to keep the name of Doudrop. She made a mistake of aligning with Marie in the first place. Marie attacked her, so they announced that they'll be facing off next week as well. Did you guys say in the comments wondering our thoughts on Doudrop keeping the name even though she's free of Marie? Because he's saying that I thought that they would go back to Piper Niven. I would agree. I was pretty surprised when they had her keep the name like that, but I guess again, sometimes I like how WWE tries to shake it up, do things a little differently, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Doudrop is a insulting term, so. Or at least it's not a good term, right? That was the whole idea. So that's something a little weird. But I think that kind of just like Morrison, this is a good chance to kind of give somebody else the rub and maybe build somebody up, potentially as a title contender, right, John?
Absolutely. I think that the fact that she changed her name means they have plans for her.
Yeah, that would seem to be a fair prediction. I mean, she's been featured on Raw alongside Eva Marie. I mean, and whether you like Marie or not, she is kind of this very controversial character. She's definitely she's over, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like, she's definitely going to garner a reaction. People pay attention to her for better or worse. So whoever is kind of paired with that stands to benefit. So that, to me, the fact they put Niven or Doudrop in that spot speaks to the fact that they probably see her pretty highly. And Tessier hoping or I guess pitching Doudrop versus Charlotte. I don't know about that. I mean, that feels like a down the road kind of thing. And I guess that does offer a good segue to the fact that Charlotte Flair won the Raw Women's title at SummerSlam, as we had predicted on this very show, where it felt like it was not going to be Nikki ASH walking out with the title. Instead, it was Charlotte. She got a pretty good promo saying she doesn't need friends or family. She just needs the title, and that nobody can match her legacy. So, and ironically, very heelish things to say. She was getting cheered for it. So again, kind of like Bobby Lashley, a little bit of the blurring of the lines here, where the crowd reactions kind of going a different way of maybe the story. But regardless, Laura Rock wondering who might challenge Charlotte for the title. Well, it feels like we know at least the first one. Alexa Bliss confronted Charlotte Flair and merely said hi, but Alexa Bliss, following her win over Eva Marie at SummerSlam, stepping right into the title scene here. And I'm here for this. I'm excited. I mean, Alexa Bliss, John and I have been talking about it pretty much every week. I've been saying, get Alexa Bliss back in the title scene. It's been too long. We haven't really seen it since, call it, really January. So I think she could do, I mean, it's a very good clash of personalities. I mean, Flair is the queen, Bliss in this kind of fiend-like character. I think that's two very distinct characters. I think it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and there's gonna be some key match at Extreme Rules between these two. Match do you think here?
I don't know. This feels like,
I think they're gonna have a title. You think they'll have a title match?
Yeah, because kind of like Bobby Lashley and Sheamus in a way, or maybe even more so. This feels like this would probably be the best option at this point, where I think Bliss is the most ready to challenge Charlotte. I think that's probably the best option they could do at this point. And but maybe because of the fact that they're two real top stars on Raw, it could and this is just how Extreme Rules works. Most of the time, it feels like they kind of pick a stipulation, and it's almost like a spin the wheel deal, where it's like, oh, let's make it a table match. I think that there are ways they could make it more specific, where you have Jesse Mata in the comments saying they could do it like a playground match for the title. I don't know. I don't know about putting Charlotte Flair in a match like that. I think they want to make it a little more legitimate in that she's the queen, she's a champion. Maybe a ladder match or a table match. I don't really know. Yeah, I mean, I think no matter what they do, it'll be fun. I mean, they're both very, very talented. If I remember, don't quote me on it, but I thought Bliss was in the first table match for the women's title or something like that. I thought that was a couple of years ago at this point, or at least that she's been in a match like that before, obviously. So I think that, this will be a good match, and we'd have about a month to get there. So I think if they tell a good story, that'd be a lot of fun. Did you guys say wondering if they'll make Charlotte a babyface soon enough? Because given the reaction where I was just talking about, the fact that she was getting cheered tonight, and like I said, we're talking about Raw, but of course Becky Lynch coming back now, reports saying that she'll be a top heel on SmackDown, kind of begs the question, like, oh, maybe they need to have Charlotte as a face on Raw, kind of to counter that in a way. I think that'll make a lot of sense, and I think even though we saw Bliss feud with Eva Marie, I think John, you and I were talking about this on last week's show. Bliss, it feels like she was the lesser of the two evils there. She never really turned face. So if you put her against Charlotte and people are cheering Charlotte, then that feels like a pretty easy way to reassert the fact that Bliss is a heel. So I could definitely see that. And for Charlotte, it rapidly feels like the kind of performer that you don't need to really be babyface or heel. Like, she's just Charlotte. I think that's kind of something we've definitely been seeing. I'll say since she came back around WrestleMania time. So I think that would make a lot of sense to see Charlotte positioned in that way. And yeah, for me, I've long been wanting to see Alexa Bliss in this spot here, back in the title scene. So this is one of my one of the things I enjoyed more tonight. And again, to balance it out here, we have things I liked, things I didn't. Something that I had liked, but we saw one vignette for Elias saying that Elias is dead, and I was like, all right, I'm here for this. It's cool. I'm liking it. Elias, he burned his guitar. I don't know where we're going, but it's exciting. And then we got another vignette where he said that he's just the WWE superstar, and he got a new hat. So I was like, that's it. Like we got a couple weeks of Elias with the vignettes of burning the guitar and abandoning music, and he gets a new hat, and it ended with a WWE logo. So I'm not sure what to make of this, where he said WWE used to stand for Walk with Elias, and now he's the WWE superstar. Mixed feelings, John. Mixed feelings. What do you think?
Maybe he's going to be the. What do you think about that?
Maybe he'll be the what?
Said maybe he'll end up drifting.
I thought that. Like I kind of thought that was the case when he burned the guitar, and they're kind of going back to basics. But I'm kind of hung up on this white hat kind of thing. Like it seems like this kind of purity thing, or it feels like it's something a little more symbolic. I saw a couple people joking that it felt like Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 26 when he was like the angelic Shawn Michaels. Or Dan Greathouse joking that he could come back with white hair and be like the new Undertaker. I don't know. I feel that that's a little goofy, but it feels like even though this was just a new hat, it feels like there's still something more than that, and I don't know what it is. But Raul Taker Sanchez likes the idea of the Drifter, saying it sounds good. Jesse Mata saying if they're going to go back to the Drifter, give him his old name back. I don't know. I like that they're. It feels like they've got something, like kind of like Baron Corbin. It feels like we're going somewhere. I don't know where it is. I mean, I certainly hope that it's more than just a new hat. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll see a little more development here next week. But I was a little disappointed that like this was the next development is like he got a new hat and he's the quote unquote the WWE superstar. So hopefully next week we'll get a little more. Another layer to it beyond this, and in the meantime, another match here that maybe a mixed bag. I thought there was a lot of good on Raw, maybe some not so good. We saw Monsoon versus Jinder Mahal, and I bring this match up mostly to talk about the fact that this whole feud of Drew McIntyre just kind of felt like missed opportunity where we got this build and they never really mentioned the fact these two guys have so much history and they never really went to the next level as I hope they would. And now here we are. Mahal's pretty much seemingly let it go. He's out there facing Mansoor. That's it. And Mustafa Ali was out of ringside, and Mahal got disqualified. Granted, I guess he was a little frustrated that he lost the SummerSlam to McIntyre. And Mustafa Ali did not help Mansoor when he got attacked, kind of trying to teach him a lesson, which felt weird to me because I think it was last week Mustafa Ali helped Mansoor win the match, and it kind of felt like they were leaning towards them kind of really becoming this babyface team. This felt like kind of a step backwards in a way, but definitely something interesting that they're still complicating this relationship and rolling with it. Dietrich, I think it was an okay match. I thought it was fine. Like, wasn't great. But again, more of the bigger takeaway being that, as Dengray was saying, the tag team's dead. I don't know about that, but it's definitely, like I said, a step backwards in that I thought they were really going to establish them as this team, and now instead, maybe it's not so clear cut like that. What do you think about this match and the potential future of this team?
So I like seeing Jinder Mahal win again. What about you?
I mean, that's good. I mean, Dietrich Cassidy saying they're ruining Jinder. He's former WWE champion. So even just wait a minute. No, he didn't win. He lost by disqualification. He was like beating him down in the corner, and he got disqualified. So I guess
okay, fair. But what I was he looked really good.
Right,
Let's go with that.
It was a dominant performance, yes. So no, I think that's a step in the right direction for him. As for where you go from here, I don't know. I guess he could challenge Damian Priest. I think that'd be kind of something, to kind of help solidify Priest's status as the U.S. champion. As DJ said, he's a former WWE champion, so he's definitely got that kind of I guess prestige, or at least like that sense that this is a former champion, a guy that's been a big deal in the past and still could be if they play the cards right. But again, the fact that they kind of perhaps mishandled this feud with Drew McIntyre, a little disappointing. But in a way, here, I like this comment from DJ Tessier, wondering if Jinder could go back to NXT. I mean, at this point, it's weird because, like, earlier we were talking about Ricochet maybe going back to NXT. I mean, if you look at the fact that we hear these reports about WWE supposedly kind of preferring big guys again in the developmental sense, I could see, like, oh, they could send Jinder back there. He could be the NXT champion or something. But at the same time, Nick Khan was saying that, you know, they were trying to kind of possibly reshape NXT into this, like, you know, training system rather than kind of developmental, where they're trying to like train and on practically like less experienced people in to become wrestlers rather than grooming independent wrestlers. So it feels like I don't feel like you're going to see as much kind of moves back from the main roster to NXT. Which in a way, you know, it's perhaps that in itself is concerning, because then you have a guy like Jinder, a guy like Ricochet, people that maybe could benefit from, you know, moving back to NXT. Now they're kind of somewhat stuck on the main roster. So, you know, I on paper, I like the idea of sending Jinder back there, and, you know, maybe he could face Mojo or, you know, just enjoy prominence on NXT otherwise. But it feels like NXT is kind of pivoting away from that sense of a third brand of legitimate competitors, and see, you know, we saw Finn Balor go back there. I don't think that's going to be something you'd really see in this new NXT. So, but no, I would agree. It was good to see him, even though he didn't win. He enjoyed. He looked good. He did look good. So. Other than that, another big, I guess maybe the last big thing was the fact that RK Bro won the Raw tag titles at SummerSlam. They're on the same page. They're living their best life. And tonight, Riddle got Randy Orton his own scooter, and Randy's face when he saw this thing pop me, he was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" Like, Riddle got me the scooter. I'm loving this dynamic. It's a lot of fun, and the fact, like, backstage or in the show, the show like kind of. The penultimate thing was a celebration. But earlier, Riddle and Randy met up backstage, and Riddle went in to hug Randy, and Randy didn't hug him, and he's like, "Oh, that's okay. My stepdad didn't hug me either." And that cracked me up. I was like, "Oh man, Riddle, like, he's growing on me." It's just such a fun dynamic here, and the fact they have the titles now, I think that there's even more they could do with it. And then we got the celebration. Riddle got Randy the scooter. AJ Styles comes out and says, "Hey, Randy didn't get you a gift." So, you know, kind of maybe stirring the pot there and setting up the one real rematch we saw tonight. And I was fine with it because it was a good match. But we definitely have seen this match recently. It was Riddle versus AJ Styles. Yet again, a very good match. This time around, Randy Orton kind of helped Riddle win, and Orton beat the crap out of almost with the scooter, which I thought was a fun spot. And RK Bro stood tall to end the show. So I guess I'll ask, what do you think of RK Bro winning the titles and now ending Raw standing tall?
Very happy they won the titles. I see a rematch and Extreme, possibly an Extreme Rules tag match, but I definitely seen the last of this feud yet. I also want to point out that Orton is doing it to perfection.
Yeah, I mean, Orton, like, he's playing that straight man versus Riddle's like comedy perfectly. It's just such a fun contrast of personalities there. You know, we've talked about it for months now. Raw. We criticize it. We say, oh, they're doing this or that. If not wrong, they're mishandling something. But I feel like they've played RK Bro as best they can, even with Randy Orton kind of at one point taking that sabbatical. They kind of maybe delayed the payoff there. But now here we are. They're the champions. It's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. And I would definitely agree. It feels like, you know, this might be one of the featured matches for Extreme Rules. Could even be in, as you said, an Extreme Rules tag team match. I like that idea. So, you know, good match with Riddle and AJ Styles here, and you know, hopeful that we'll continue to see this here in the weeks that continue out here. There's this little part of me was worried they would go with like a swerve of Orton like turning on Riddle tonight, just because. I'm very glad they didn't do that. That would have been pretty frustrating after we had this fun culmination moment at SummerSlam. So thankfully they're firmly together as an odd couple here. So, and they stood tall in the show. So, you know, tonight, you know, I'll ask for your rating, but I was very pleasantly surprised, especially on the heels of this, you know, wild weekend full of wrestling. I kind of expected that I'd be down on Raw, or I'd be kind of like fatigued with wrestling itself, but I was so just pleasantly surprised that Raw didn't have a lot of rematches. They announced matches for next week that weren't rematches as well. The matches had stakes, and it felt like everyone was kind of moving. And I will say the first hour you had Bobby Lashley come out. He was confronted by Damian Priest, and that it just felt kind of different. It felt like maybe in a way like a season premiere, where it's like this kind of new beginning in a way, compared to we spent the past month plus putting up a SummerSlam. Now here we are. Goldberg's not here, like he was on the show, now he's not. So we got to kind of move in a new direction. And now our Bro is the champion. So for me, I was just very, very pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it a lot. So for me, I would probably, especially rating on the Raw scale, I'd probably go for probably like a 7.5, and that might be even a little low because I enjoyed the show tonight. What do you think, John?
Good evening tonight. I thought it was a pretty average, nothing above, nothing below average. I thought there was good storytelling, developments, no rematch, just overall really good show. But I'd say average. It wasn't extraordinarily anything good. Obviously, no Adam like that, thing like that.
Yeah. That would have made, for me, that would have made it like an above average show. Actually, even no, I think for me, just sometimes I get so down on Raw, kind of hoping for more and being let down. That again, I was pleasantly surprised with the lack of rematches, with the sense of movement, and someone like Adam Cole could have debuting or moving up to main roster could have really propped it up like that. But to me, it didn't even really need something like that because it was just a good show otherwise. But seeing definitely some comments from the people enjoying the show. Kevin Taylor with an 8. DJ Cassidy with a 9.7. Definitely a high score there. Laura Rock with 6.9. Viral Taker Stage with a solid 6. Good but not great. Dan Greyhouse with a 7. Nestor mentioning that Shane and Baszler and Nia Jax yet again back together. I am wanting to harp on that too much because I've talked about that for months now. But yes, they are still back together here. Or not even back together. They're still going strong together on Raw somehow. So she's maybe because of that giving the show an 8. Jess Mounty giving Raw a 6.5 and a 7.5 for SummerSlam. And Nesh giving Raw an 8 as well. And Benjamin Jones with a 6.9. So, people seem to enjoy the show for the most part here. Nando, friend of the show, giving the show a 6.2, maybe a little lower, maybe about average. And Herman Taro with a 7. For him explaining that he was upset that Shane took the loss. Not a perfect show. And that there's so Cross's gear was ridiculous. There's something that I didn't really like, but I thought definitely a step in the right direction. And I guess I'd been kind of worried in some ways that there'd be the sense that they're kind of loading up the card for SummerSlam, and then we'd be in for another lull of like the sense of just biding our time. Whereas, tonight I wound up feeling like, no, we're kind of moving forward and we're starting new things with, whether it's Lashley and Sheamus or potentially Lashley and Damian Priest, even maybe down the road. RK Bro going strong. Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, a couple things, numerous things to look forward to. And Miz and Morrison, lots of good stuff. Definitely enjoyed it a lot. And again, on the heels of a weekend chock full of, or maybe an overfull of wrestling, the fact that I enjoyed it a lot, maybe even just, I feel more hopeful than I have Raw in quite some time. So for that reason alone, I enjoyed it. Having that sense of hope about Raw is a win in itself. So hopefully it'll carry through to next week and beyond. But regardless, we'll be here to talk about it next Monday. Johnny and I will be here back here on Tuesday to talk about NXT and what might be the start of a new era. We're not quite sure just how drastic the changes will be, but regardless, we'll be there to talk about it after NXT on Tuesday night. The Dynamite Dudes added to cover all things I guess the Dynamite Dudes added the Dynamite Dudes of Rampage. Sorry, it's covering AW and Rampage. Robert E. Fliss and I talk about SmackDown on Saturday mornings, and we've got a great stream of interviews constantly coming to you guys. Bill Pritchard recently interviewed CM Punk. You gotta check that out, and just all these things and more, always available on all of our audio platforms, or at SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever it may be. We've got you covered. So, John, we made it through this weekend on a what, call it 4-day stretch. Yeah, 4-day stretch with SummerSlam. John Cena holding up his SummerSlam program, and he got a souvenir cup. He was there in person. Now we're back in the relative normal Monday night here for Raw, but we made it through, and it was a fun weekend. CM Punk's back. SummerSlam was perhaps a mixed bag, but it was a fun show. Raw was good, and there was so much wrestling, and maybe having all this wrestling to watch, it makes it easy to do one thing here. But that we do here about Son John. Can you tell me what that is?
This is, man, it's not even nine here, and we're already on with the post Raw. We're just gonna wrestling at 9 o'clock at night when Raw's over. This is crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good time. There's a lot of wrestling to watch, a lot of wrestling to enjoy. Whatever flag you fly, whatever company you enjoy the most, we do one thing here above all others at WrestleZone, as to enjoy wrestling. Thanks.